room tonight. I'd like to call the Cumberland School Committee meeting to order Thursday, October 24th at 7:33 p.m. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'll ask everyone to rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, next order is approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Mrs. Waters.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Friedman and Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Next on the agenda is student government report, student activities. Mrs. Goggin.
Good
Ms.
evening. My name is Timmery Goggin, and I am the
You gotta
treasurer.
speak up. We can't hear you from here.
Good evening. My name is Timmery Goggin, and I am the treasurer for the junior class. In the previous month of September, student government has had the addition of the freshman officers and the new government board positions. The board members have helped us create new social media accounts and come up with other ways to get information circulating in the hallways of our school, which has generated more participation in our bi-weekly meetings and other events. Over this month, our school has continued to settle into the 2019-2020 school year, and two of the most notable events that took place this month are one of the school's annual blood drives and Spirit Week. The blood drive was very successful, and tonight some of the members of student government are attending a ceremony for the top 20 schools in Rhode Island. During the week of October 13th through the 19th, our school also held its Spirit Week. All of the grades worked extremely hard in each of the events, and it resulted in a close competition. The final standings ended with the freshmen in third, a tie between the sophomores and juniors for second, and the seniors winning. Apart from the competition, one of the highlights from Spirit Week was the T-shirt fundraiser that each grade and faculty participated in. As mentioned in the last report, this year, for every T-shirt sold, $1 was donated to the Ronald Paquette Memorial Foundation. Each grade, as well as the faculty, had their individual sales. The freshmen sold 170 shirts, the sophomores sold 152, the juniors with 131, seniors with 140, and faculty sold 53. This added up to a total of 646, and on the Wednesday of the Spirit Week, during the school's Pink Out Day, we also collected donations at lunch, which brought in just over an additional $200. As school comes to the close of its first quarter and we head into November, student government is beginning to prepare for this Thanksgiving food drive. During the food drives, students and faculty are encouraged to bring in donations of different types of canned goods, other non-perishables, and money to be used for other items to be purchased. All of the donations will be used to create turkey baskets, which are given to families in the area. Along with the Thanksgiving food drive, student government is planning to start working with Blessings in a Backpack. They work to provide students who qualify for free and reduced lunch with food to have over the weekend. Cumberland High School is planning to spend Thursday afternoons packing the food into bags for those students to take each weekend. We are excited to be able to help give back to those in our community. To conclude, Cumberland High School has had a busy and exciting start to the year, but we also have many events to look forward to that will allow us as a school to see how much we can accomplish together. Thank you so much for your time and have a great evening.
Thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda is consent agenda. Approval of minutes from October 10th, 2019. Approval of the minutes from executive session on October 10th, 2019. Do I have a motion on the consent agenda? Motion approved by Mrs. Waters.
Second.
Second by Mr. Salvatore. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Thank you. Next is a report out of executive session. Report out of the executive session meeting on October 24th, 2019. There were no votes taken tonight in executive session. I need a motion to seal the minutes. Motion by Mrs. Waters.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Friedman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Fiorello opposes. Passes 6-1.
Got to be consistent.
Next is Superintendent Report, Cumberland High School Student Recognitions. Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Chairman, if you could please join me down at the podium. We have some recognitions to do this evening. Good evening again, everyone. We have the honor of recognizing several students for some pretty impressive work that they have done over the past year and summer. And the first thing that I'd like to do is recognize two of our students for the outstanding work that they did on the PSAT. So if I could please have Ella Henderson and Jack Murphy please come on up. You can stand over there right next to Mr. DeMonica. Stand over there. So Ella and Jack are members of the class of 2020, so they're making some pretty important decisions right now about what they're going to do with their academic careers moving forward. And they are being recognized for their performance on the 2018 PSAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And as you know, lots and lots of students across the country take the PSAT. In fact, every year, 1.5 million students take the PSAT. And only 50,000 of those students are recognized as finalists for the National Merit Scholarship qualifiers. So this commendations, the commendations that these students will receive tonight represent a demonstration of outstanding academic success. So the 50,000 students who are among the 1.5 million who actually take the test, that's 3% of the students who take the test. The National Merit Scholarship Corporation recognizes students that represent a valuable national resource, recognizing their accomplishments as well as the key role their schools play in their academic development. It is the hope of the National Merit Scholarship Corporation, as well as the Cumberland School Department, that this recognition will help broaden their educational opportunities as they continue with their education moving forward. So on behalf of the school committee, congratulations on your outstanding performance, and we have a certificate for both of you for your commendation on the PSAT. Congratulations. Ella, congratulations to you. Jack, congratulations to you. And we could probably slide over there a little bit so that we can take a picture. Good luck to you. You want to give a speech? Or? Unfortunately, I was not one of those 50,000. Okay, so we also have another recognition. There are actually two students who received this recognition. One of them is here this evening. Unfortunately, the other one could not be here. Two members of the class of 2021 represented Cumberland High School in the state of Rhode Island at the Congress of Future Medical Leaders in Boston, Massachusetts. And one of those students is here this evening. That is Vanessa Osegale. Vanessa, come on up. Congratulations. So this is a pretty big deal. This honors program, with its strict academic requirements, is designed to honor and motivate students to aspire to be physicians or medical scientists and to stay true to their dreams of working in the medical field in some way. These students were able to see a live surgery while asking questions in real time, as well as learn about state-of-the-art diagnostic tools and be inspired by world-changing researchers, futurists, and technologists. So on behalf of the school committee and the Cumberland School Department, congratulations to you, Vanessa, and good luck to you moving forward. Congratulations, Vanessa. So I think it's important also to mention the other student who attended this summer, Alea Chaparro. We have a nice framed certificate for her as well. So congratulations to both Alea and Vanessa. And thank you for representing the Cumberland School Department so well, all of you. Thanks. Mr. Chairman, I have one more thing to share with all of you. And I would be remiss if I did not share some information regarding our performance on the most recent RICAST assessment. As you all know, the results were made available at the beginning of this week, and the performance of Cumberland students in grades 3 through 8 continues to be impressive. And I must acknowledge the outstanding work by Mr. Damana and his team, Deb Rude and Kathy Cardoza. They are doing an outstanding job of providing excuse me, professional development to our staff. So I think the reason for our success is going to be a lot more complicated than what I'm about to share with you, but I think two very important things have to be done. I think we have to make good choices about what we teach, and just as importantly, we have to make good choices about how we teach. So there's a real focus on the professional development that we provide our teachers, and to demonstrate the growth that we have experienced over the last several years. The only way that you can improve to the extent that we have improved is if people are working really hard. So I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the hard work of administrators in this district and the incredible work that is being done by certified staff in this district. Those individuals who work with students all day and every day and teaching them the standards that we expect them to know and be able to do at the end of the school year, and all of the staff that support those students who may be struggling in some way. So the great news is that on top of the statistically significant increases that we have experienced over the last several years, we have experienced a 5% increase in both math and ELA over last year. So 5% is statistically significant, and it indicates that we are moving in a positive, we continue to move in a positive direction. Now, I don't want to be overly dramatic, but I don't know that there's another school district in America that has demonstrated the growth that the Cumberland School Department has demonstrated over the last 6 or 7 years. So, I mean, that is something that we need to celebrate. I think that, I don't believe that, it should be on the 4th page of the local newspaper. I think it should be on the front page of the local newspaper, because the work that's happening in this district is phenomenal. And I would challenge anyone to deny that. Now, that being said, we know that we are doing well, but we know that we also have some work to do. The administrators in all of our buildings, as well as the teaching staff, takes this very personally, and we know that, like I said, we know that we have some work to do in some areas. So the bottom line is we are very pleased with the 5% increase in both math and ELA for grades 3 through 8. We are, Tony and his team are already digging into the data to identify those things that we're doing exceptionally well, and also to identify those things that we can improve upon. That is an ongoing process. I say this all the time. We have conversations all day and every day about teaching and learning. We expect that our administrators are instructional leaders. It has to be that way. There's no such thing as a as a good school with a poor instructional leader. We have strong instructional leaders, and again, it's something that administrators take very seriously. So we're already digging into the data, and we're already identifying areas where we can improve and adjusting our teaching accordingly. So Mr. Damana and his team will be doing their annual presentation to you on the RICAS results in the near future. So I think this is something that we should really feel good about. So, I mean, and again, I can't imagine that there are too many districts. I don't know that there are any districts in Rhode Island. It's not a competition. It is a reality that we are doing well. And I believe that, and as the data showed last year, and it'll show again, everyone, you know, likes to identify Massachusetts as the gold standard, and rightfully so, because of their performance on assessments, both, you know, the MCAS and Mass. But one of the things that we do is compare Cumberland to similar demographic school departments in Massachusetts, and we are doing exceptionally well in comparison to them. And again, it's not a competition, but it gives us some idea about how Cumberland is doing in relation to districts that have a similar demographic makeup. So this, I believe, is good news, and we're hard at work focusing on what we need to do to continue our improvement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Superintendent, I think you're exactly right. We're on the right track going up in our scores in the state. I believe it was about 6 years ago that then Chairwoman Mrs. Bolio made a motion on the floor here with Dr. Thornton that we amended the budget and added interventionists into the school district. And every year, we keep on adding more and more people into it to help identify the children that need the services, and they're getting it, and they're targeted, and it's bringing up our scores. So we're, what, second in the state now, approximately, in regards to our scores?
Well, we're in the top 5 for both math and ELA for grades 3 through 8. And, you know, one of the things that we talk about all the time, Mr. Damana and I talk about, are, like, we're one of the largest school systems in the state, and when you start comparing, like, the number of students that are assessed versus some of the other districts that have, like we have over 2,000 students that we assess in grades 3 through 8. Some of the other top performing districts only have 300 students or 250 students or 300. I mean, so, you know, good for them, and they're doing well, but we're right there with them from a proficiency standard. And again, it's not just about test scores. The most important, and this is something that Tony talks about all the time, and I couldn't agree more. Like, shame on us if we're not doing everything humanly possible to ensure that every single student in this district is at grade level proficiency or above at the end of the school year. I mean, we have a tremendous responsibility to do that. And I think that's the way we go about our business, is we see it as a tremendous responsibility to do that, and our teachers and administrators are buying into that. So I don't know if I answered.
No, you did. I mean, you can't compare a school with 60 students being number 1 in the state, and we had 2,000 that were tested.
But regardless, we're top 5.
Right.
So that's good news.
Right. Thank you.
All right, so I have one more thing. I did see that, you know, one of the students that I said was not here, one of our future medical leaders, just came in with her family. So I think it's appropriate that we identify her. So come on up. All right, everybody. This is Aaliyah Shapiro. I mentioned that she was the other student who participated in the Congress of Future Medical Leaders, and I'm so happy that she was happy to be here with her family. So please join me in congratulating Aaliyah for her participation in this wonderful program. All right, so we're going to take a picture. So come on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Next is report of standing committees, payment of bills, Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There was no payment of bills tonight.
No payment of bills, thank you. Next is fiscal management subcommittee update, Mr. Salvatore.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chair. Fiscal did meet tonight at 5:45 in room T319. All members were present for the subcommittee. Quickly on the agenda, Mr. Prignano gave an update on the school department's projected budget of fiscal year 2021 to 2023. I am going to highlight a couple of key items that stuck out to me. One of them is that the free and reduced lunch, we're down this year, Mr. Prignano, correct me if I'm wrong, 200 kids on that application, correct? Yes, we're down 200 kids. So if it remains 200 kids that did not file for free or reduced lunch that actually deserve it, then next year we could lose around $800,000 from our state appropriation. So this is a concern. I believe the administration, correct, Mr. Mitchell, is going to be reaching out to some of these students.
We've already started that process.
Excellent, thank you. But this is something to keep in our forecast on our budget. Another discussion was copy machine. So the principals have been notified that teachers need to reduce the copying. In some of the excessive teachers making copies, one of them has been outlined to making 6,000 copies. So that is going to be addressed, and when you're making Mr. Mitchell, 6,000 copies. I believe it was last year, right?
The actual information that we presented was a dollar amount based on the number of copies that were being made, and that was actually a 3-year average. So
Okay.
The number that I gave you was that there were some totals that were resulting in thousands and thousands of dollars in copy costs.
In a run rate of one teacher making up to 6,000 copies. So this has been addressed with the principals to speak with the teachers to keep the copying down to a minimum. Another item that we spoke about was when Mr. Prignano gave us some of our run rates. So extrapolating our budget from fiscal year 2021, 22, and 23, by the time we get to 2023, our budget at a 2 to 3% increase of what we forecast will total an increase of $9.8 million additional funds that will be needed for the schools by 2023. So on October 31st of this year, in a couple of weeks, next week, at 8 a.m., the fiscal committee is having a meeting with the mayor at the town hall, so anyone's encouraged to attend if you would like. It's just a preliminary meeting that we're going to attend to discuss the budget. So I believe that was an update. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Next is policy and procedure subcommittee update, Mr. Fiorello.
Yes, unfortunately, policy and procedures were not able to meet this past week. We will have a very full agenda at our November meeting. One of the additional policies that'll be coming up for a slight amendment is the high school grading policy that Mr. Costa made me aware of the other day. The changes, I believe, are in the drive currently in preparation. It was just a typographical error on one of the grading charts, but that'll be corrected, and I'm sure it's already corrected in the handbook and all those locations.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorello. Next is Achievement and Communications Subcommittee update.
Achievement and Communications Subcommittee also didn't meet this week.
All right, thank you. Next is comments from the public. If there's anyone here that'd like to speak to address the school committee, please come to the podium. State your name and address for the record. Okay, there is none. I'd just like to acknowledge that our town council liaison is here again, Mr. Mike Kinch, and we appreciate that he does come to the meetings. Thank you. All right, next is new business, Cumberland High School presentation, standard-based grading. Mr. Costa.
Good evening, everyone. Before I get started with the presentation on the grading, I just want to go back to Timmery's presentation and just say how awesome our students were this year. We had more students attend Powder Puff football, the class clash, than any year that I've remembered. And our homecoming dance was attended by 740 kids this year, which is unbelievable, the participation. So the salute really goes out to the students who, with Mr. Curran, our new English teacher, really promoted the events in a way we hadn't seen before. So just a salute to them and their efforts this past week. So thank you for the opportunity to share with you some of the changes we've taken place at the high school tied to grading. We'll just go through this really quick. So CHS uses a hybrid system where we are holding true to our standards-based system of curriculum design, where instruction is driven by the standards and learner outcomes. Our teachers are writing targets on boards daily. We're checking to make sure targets are there. It's one of the indicators that we use that students are learning. We are reporting out how students are performing against those standards, as well as providing information on the overall performance on different tasks. So we're coming to grades. Now, this is not new at CHS, as we had measurement standard for some time, and our teachers are very comfortable working with rubrics attached to these standards. So this evolution has been years in the making. But the one thing that we are doing very differently this year is this is the first year that we've actually moved away from a point system. So there is no 100-point system in our grading procedures this year. So the moving away from the 100-point system is a major shift. Another major shift this year is the adoption of a 12-point scale across the whole school instead of the 4-point scale of 4, 3, 2, 1. So as you see on this slide here, the major levels on the left have been broken down each into 3 parts. Using a plus-minus system, and each one of these parts now will provide more specific feedback to students and where they are within the standard. So here's a sample rubric with the 12-point scale. So this is what it will look like. As you can see, the 4 levels of performance have been broken down into a system of the pluses and minuses. This practice will help us more deeply provide feedback to students when looking at every skill in the language of a standard. Interestingly, I was able to attend a Marzano Institute professional development series at the beginning of this week, and the things that they were presenting to us, and it was more focused on proficiency scales, and they got into this idea of these mid-level points on standards, and then they went on so far as to talk about how we can transform these standard scores into traditional grading. We are so far ahead of anyone else that was in that room. So as they're presenting these things, we're almost preemptively talking about what the next thing was going to be. And so when I even mentioned a grading scale, I said, here's what our grading scale looks like. And then you'd be like, oh, that's the same one that's on our page 19. And then you turn to page 19, and there it is. So Cumberland High School, in terms of standards-based grading, and they acknowledge it's very hard to move completely to standards-based grading. We're really right at the front of what other schools are doing. So another shift in practice this year will be to incorporate zero into our grading procedures. We know that there's lots of research that warns us from using zeros in a 100-point scale, as it will result in a representation of students' grades that is inaccurate. Our use of zero, though, is a little bit different. In our 12-point scale, it represents work that students have not done. In previous years, we would represent work that students haven't done as a 1, but there was no way to differentiate a level of performance where students gave an effort and demonstrated a 1 versus where a student didn't provide work and we represented it as a 1. So this year we are using zeros. This practice will more accurately provide feedback to parents and students. So one of the things we need to do at the high school is somehow convert these standard levels to traditional grades. 2 reasons we need to convert from one system to the other is, first, at the high school, students earn credit based on their overall performance in a class, so we are a credit-bearing system. And secondly, we do have GPAs that are tied, grade point averages that are tied with the credit that students earn. So in a true, or in just a standards-based system where we're only providing levels of performance, we wouldn't be doing those things at the high school. We are maintaining some of those traditional aspects of grading, so we do convert from a standards-based to a traditional way. And I'm going to give you an example on how we do that. So if you look at the rubric I just showed you a little bit earlier, pretending this is an assessment that a student took. If you look at the first standard, let's say the student was performing at the level of 4, and on the second standard, the student is performing at a level of 3-. So what we do there is we're using this equivalency chart. So if you look here, a level of 4 is equivalent to the 11th point on the scale, and a 3- is equivalent to the 7th point on the scale. We basically take those 2 numbers, we add them. There were 2 standards measured, so we divide by 2, and there's the 9. We take that 9 and we look at these decimal ranges developed by collaboration between district office, high school administration, and high school teachers, and we look where that 9 fits. So on that assignment, right, on this assignment, if students were to score those 2 scores, their overall assignment grade would be a B+. That is what students will see. So what you're looking at here is at the end of the marking period, we need to calculate an average for the course. We're going to use the numeric values. So the B+, the equivalent to the 8.7. Let's say on the second summative assessment, student were to score a 0.5, which is the equivalent of an F-. And again, F- might be a little bit unusual to look at, but it really just represents a level of performance here. And then on summative 3, the students was at a 7.8, which equals a B. We take those numeric values, we add them up, divide by the number of summatives. So the students average on those 3 summatives, 5.667. We go back and look at that range. So the 5.667 falls under that C+. So the students average for the class is a C+. Some of the things that we've done in order to share this information with our community. There were some instructional videos, one that was designed for teacher. There was another video that was designed for parents and students, which has been shared. We also invited families to a forum to discuss grading changes this year. The feedback I got after I released the video from parents was there really wasn't a need to attend that forum. So I will honestly admit it was not attended by a lot of people. 1. But we did have an individual who came to learn more about our grading. She had said to me while we were there that, well, I wanted to come and see what other people had to say because I understand it pretty accurately. So, you know, we've also placed, the last thing I want to say about some of these changes, if we've placed some resources for families, including the conversion scales in the family folder of the high school, which can be found on the high school website. So parents can access that information at any time. Again, the videos were emailed out. We have not made them available on our website, which is something we should probably do, so people can access them at any time rather than going back and searching for those things in their email. Just to quickly mention the Marzano Institute, once again, towards the end, I did call him over. I showed him, and I showed the gentleman who was running the professional development series. I showed him our report card. I showed him the types of things he were doing, and he was like, man, you guys are on the right track. So we've done that internally, which is something that we should be proud of. Thank you.
Anyone from the school committee have questions for this? Okay, Mr. Costa.
So what I don't think I saw in there, good work on all this, by the way,
Yeah, thank you.
is the corresponding percentage. So like as a parent, when we get our Aspen notifications,
Mhm.
it will give us a numerical grade. So say like a grade of 9, and in parentheses it says 75%. And then it gives us, you know, where their current performance overall, I guess in that term. But your chart up there, I don't think had a corresponding
That chart right
numerical
there.
percentage. Right. So like this says grade of 9 is a 75%.
A grade of a score of 9 should only be coming up as a B+. So I will say, Ms. Freeman, that if you could share that with me later,
They're
the
all
grade
like
book.
this, right? Yeah, it's in, like a 12,
Only in the notification
yeah.
app.
So
this
as
is
a
new
parent,
information.
I'm mostly
Yeah,
driven by the
okay.
notification app.
All right.
I mean, because this is
So
how
that-
I get
that-
everything every day.
This is the first I'm hearing of that on notification, so that's something that we will
So
need
it
to
would
do.
say like a grade of 12 is a 100%. A grade
It should
of-
never, so my understanding moving forward, it would never say a numeric grade. A grade of 12 would say A+ only.
Okay.
Aspen's working on that issue with the notifications. We have a request in them for them to change that.
Okay, so then it would say,
A+.
and would it say grade of 12, A+? It would say that instead of grade of 12, 100%?
It would say, yeah, it would say 12 A+. The grade on the assignment would be an A+. Correct.
Okay. I think this is part of the confusion with a lot of
Mhm.
people, is this numerical number, a percentage number, and then not seeing the grade. the
Yeah, well,
corresponding
once
grade.
again, I appreciate the feedback on that, ladies. It was always my understanding that students would be able to see the equivalent number and then the traditional letter grade attached to any assignment. This is the first I'm hearing of.
So I think what Ella said is that when you go into Aspen, which I haven't done lately, it would give the grade, the letter grade. Okay,
Exactly.
But in here, it doesn't. Okay, but they're working on that. Do we have a timeline for when this will be updated? Okay,
Mr. Collins?
thanks.
I'm looking for some clarification around the Fs. The F, because, you know, standard grading has just F, and that indicates failure. So what will the threshold be on this, according to this chart, for non-retention for a kid who doesn't pass the class? Is it the bottom F minus? Is it?
So when you look at the bottom of that is, I don't want to misspeak on the exact number of that, but there is in the video and in the information that we've provided to parents, within that number is there. So this chart that you're looking at here, That's primarily for grading individual assignments. At the end of a marking period, all those, the F plus and the F minus goes away, because you're absolutely correct. An F is an F. And there is a threshold. I just don't want to misspeak right now, but that information is available to parents.
So would it be, because F usually
It would be whatever the bottom line of the C minus, like the tenth of a point below the C minus.
So so anything below a C minus would be.
Correct.
So essentially you're eliminating the D.
Yes.
Which is a below average, which really
Yeah.
isn't.
Cumberland High School, I'm not sure the last time we've used Ds at Cumberland High School.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Costa, is it possible to email the parents your video presentation again? And, I mean, I see some postings on Facebook, people are saying they're still confused of what's with the grading. So if we could possibly just send it out again, and then maybe with that email, notify parents that Aspen is updating the grading, so
The
that they don't see
notification part of it, sure.
Sure,
Yeah,
that-
I can absolutely do that. I think another strategy that we could definitely do is just put it on the website, so it's always accessible
Right.
for parents to find all the time.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have questions for Mr. Costa? None? Thank you, Mr. Costa.
Thank you so much.
All right, next.
Can I make
Go
a
ahead.
comment? I wasn't
Sure.
going to comment, but I feel like I need to comment. I was vehemently opposed to standards-based grading back in, 2011. But I will say, over the course of the last 6 or 7 years, what we're doing now, I think, makes so much sense and really provides the students an avenue to really know how they're doing in class. There's no ambiguity in a rubric. And I think by really, really finiting or chunking the system further into the pluses and minuses, it gives them a good sense of what their actual grade is. So I'm really happy with what we're doing now.
If I could just add to that, one of the things they said at the Marzano Institute is they also talked about the mid-level, like we're doing here. The mid-level, what it does for our students is when you see, if you're stuck in a 3 for a very long time, there's no encouragement at that time. But when you even just move those thirds of a level from a 3 minus to a 3, students see that growth, and it only encourages them to want to learn more. So that was coming from them, and we've talked about that internally as well. So, yeah, we're very happy with this. And there was one of our English teachers, Missy Kusinitz, last year at the end of her Writing 100 class, had students create these little vignettes, which I have some and I would love to share. One of the students talked about what a standards-based system has meant to her in her own growth. So she created that video on her own. I believe that other people in the room have seen it. It's extremely powerful. She did a great job with that.
And I would just add another part of this important work is the work that the high school teachers, department by department, have been doing to ensure consistency in how they are using the rubric and grading and scoring. And I think that is a really important piece of this, of standards-based grading overall, is to also get at objectivity and not subjectivity of this teacher's a hard grader, this teacher's an easy grader, this is whatever. And I know, every department is working on that, and I think some departments are further ahead than others. But I know when I went to the teacher night, Meet the Teacher Night, on the English department side, my daughter's teacher was able to really fully explain what the standards-based grading is and the work that they've been doing in the English department. And I know that there's more work continuing on that, but that's an important piece of this, is that the
Thank you.
teachers are also working on this.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Ms. Friedman. Calibration exercises to make sure teachers are, is it ever going to be perfect? Probably not, but we need to be at least in the same ballpark. And so teachers do spend a lot of time calibrating, so they're thinking about assessment in the same way, thinking about whether or not students are hitting the skills within a standard. So we do spend a lot of our time doing those things because this is what's driving the success at elementary school. I mean, it is that transition to that standards-based focus and really thinking about how do I get a kid to meet this standard. So There is a lot of work going on district-wide, and people have surely bought in and adopted these practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costa.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the vote to approve the updated school safety plans. For the public, we have a plan that is adopted every year. It's done in executive session. We get the overall view of what the plan is. It's required by the state. Dr. Masterson is our leader in regards to this. So tonight, we're going to approve a school safety plan that's for every school in the district, but the public is not allowed to see it because then you would know what our plans are. So with that being said, it was reviewed and talked about in an executive session tonight. No votes were taken up there, but I need a motion to approve the updated school safety plan.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Fiorello to approve the school safety plan, seconded by Mr. Salvatore. Any discussion?
I'd just like to say thank you to Dr. Masterson for his continued work on our school safety plans, which he takes a lot of time to take care of.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Thank you. Items number C, D, and E were put on the agenda by me to have alternates for the our three subcommittees. One of our members had a question whether I could do this or not as chairman, and so I'm going to table these till our next meeting while the school attorney reviews that item. So I need a motion to table C, D, and E till our next meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Salvatore makes a motion to table C, D, and E. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Collins and Mrs. Waters. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Ayes have it 7-0. Next is discussion of school liaison appointments. I was on our school website the other day, and I just wanted to make sure our liaisons that we have appointed are the correct ones, because I noticed North Cumberland Middle School didn't have a liaison, and I thought we had appointed Mrs. Waters to the Cumberland Parks and Recreation.
That's correct. I think that's incorrect.
Right, so I just wanted to just go through the list and make sure it's correct, so that, but I'm more concerned with making sure we have some representation that goes to the North Cumberland Middle School PTO meetings at that school, because it says here none right now. So, right now, go ahead.
I volunteer, I'd happily volunteer. I think I'm the only one who actually has a child at NCMS.
Okay, great.
Actually, I have a child at NCMS too,
Oh,
and I don't have a school to liaise, so.
okay,
Oh,
fair
you
enough.
do now.
Sorry.
All right, so,
No, you can both do it.
The chair.
right,
I believe there can be multiple
they
liaisons.
can be multiple, yes,
We have
yes.
multiple
And
on
then also, I believe any school committee member can
Right.
visit any.
That can go.
I'd just like to say that generally what we've done in the past is the liaisons are handed out essentially by whatever school, what school is in what district of the committee members, plus whatever schools we have children in. So, and then we make sure that everybody's covered.
So just let me go through this list to make sure everyone's comfortable with this. We have Ashton, Mr. Collins, BF Norton, Mr. Fiorello. Community School is Mr. Collins. Cumberland High School, we have Karen Friedman, but generally it's been all the members of the school committee for the high school. Student Government at the high school, Mr. Fiorello. The Cumberland Preschool Center is Mr. Salvatore. Is that correct, Mr. Salvatore?
I believe so, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
My attention?
All right, well, this is what's on the list. Garvin Memorial is myself and Mr. Fiorello. I'm not sure about that either. All right, McLaughlin, JJM McLaughlin was Raymond Salvatore. You're at JJM McLaughlin? That's,
Yes.
you're at, on this list?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
So I have JJM and I have
the preschool, which should be easy for you on that one. Next is the McCourt Middle School. I have myself and Mark Fiorello, but I think Mrs. Bernardo was on there with Mr. Fiorello, correct, Mr. Fiorello?
Yes.
So we'll make that note change. North Cumberland Middle School will be Mr. Collins and Mrs. Waters. Karen, we have you listed as the Woonsocket Area Career and Technical Center? That's new to you, huh? I'm not sure how many students we have there, nor do we have a say in the matter in regards to that one. Next is the Cumberland Town Council, and that was Mr. Salvatore. You know, it has.
Mr. Chair, I have decided, if you don't mind, I will stay the liaison to the Cumberland Town Council.
Fine by me.
Thank
All
you.
right, next is the Cumberland Parks Recreation, which we know we appointed Mrs. Waters. The Cumberland Business Advisory Board was Mr. Salvatore. You have a busy schedule. Who's that?
Yeah,
So,
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
I just pulled this up to speak to you about that. There is a meeting on Tuesday, November 26th. If anyone else would like to...
Mr. Fiorello says that he's on that board now.
Excellent. I mean, again, it's open for any meeting, any member to attend. I mean, Carl does a great job
Yep.
with that meeting, and it's got great members. I would encourage every member to at least attend it
And
once.
next is the Beacons Charter for the Arts. And again, Mrs. Friedman is on the list, huh? I think this was from a year ago or something, that just wasn't updated, so, again, I'm not sure what we can do with those schools, 2 schools, and it could be time that we just take them off our list as liaisons, because...
Mr. Chair, I was a liaison to the Beacon
Right,
few years ago, and I did attend. It's more of an informational,
right, okay.
gather information.
All right, I'll discuss those with Mrs. Friedman after the meeting, and we'll go from there, but I'll get the website updated so that it's on there correctly. Go ahead.
Have we ever considered having a liaison to DVP?
No, I mean,
We did have one for many years, and we've decided that there was no real purpose in taking up our time with it. If you would
What was the
like to, that's
question?
fine.
I missed it.
A liaison to BVP.
Yeah, wasn't that you for a while?
I mean, I think our liaison to BVP is the mayor right now.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Adams, maybe you can weigh in on this. Liaison will typically spearhead any situation of a student or parent having a go-between. Correct?
I have to confess, I don't think there's any official sort of definition of what a liaison does. I think it's more of an informal designation, frankly. So you can do with it what you will, if that makes any sense to you.
It's good to me.
Right. I mean, it's nice to have a working relationship with them. I'm sure the superintendent's office has that relationship with Mr. Chiapetta at BVP, so, but I don't think us going to their meetings is going to be very helpful at all, from what Mr. Denon has told me in the past. But I'm willing to entertain it. Anything else? Hearing none. All right, we'll move on. We have item number G, discussion and a vote to approve the homeschool instructions request for the 2019-2020 school year. Mr. Superintendent, do we have any homeschool this year? Any homeschool requests? No. No, none request. All right, next is personnel recommendations. We have a vote on the retirement. I have them in front of me. Go ahead.
I have them, Mr. Chairman. I have a retirement. I request the advice and consent on the school committee on the retirement of Robert DiMartino, theater teacher, .5 FTEs at Cumberland High School with an effective date of June 30th, 2020, after 12 years of service.
I need a motion to approve the retirement of Mr. DiMartino.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Bernardo. Second by Mrs. Waters. All in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it. That will be a loss. I mean, do you think we'll be able to find a .5 theater teacher, Mr. Superintendent?
Well, we're certainly going to try. I think we will.
Okay.
We have a resignation. Mr. Chairman, I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of Jonathan Rapport, assistant principal at B.F. Norton and Community Schools, effective November 8th, 2019.
Need a motion on the resignation of Jonathan Rappaport. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Bernardo, Second by Mrs. Friedman, all in favor? Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. That will be a tough one to lose since he's between two schools. Thank you.
I have a leave of absence, Mr. Chairman. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the unpaid leave of Jillian Smith, school counselor at B.F. Norton School, with an effective date of November 4th, 2019, through the end of the 2019-2020 school year.
I need a motion to approve the leave of absence for Jillian Smith through the end of the 2019-2020 school year. Motion by Mrs. Bernardo. Second by Mr. Salvatore. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it 7-0. And last but not least is the appointment.
I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Tiffany Pereira, school counselor at B.F. Norton School, with an effective date of November 4th, 2019.
We have an appointment of Tiffany Pereira, school counselor at BF, beginning November 4th, 2019. Need a motion to approve? Motion by Mrs. Bernardo. Yes, Mr. Salvatore.
Is this position been budgeted?
I am assuming this school counselor
Yes.
here is taking over for the one that we just had the leave of absence for.
And the salary range fits the current prior position?
It's actually lower.
Thank you.
Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Collins. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you.
Next is, go ahead.
So we've had a good amount of turnover at community school in the last 10, 12 years. Do we have a plan?
This is at BF.
No, Mr. Rappaport,
Oh,
who just
well,
resigned.
right.
as the-
If I could just explain,
Yeah.
Mr. Rapport has taken a position as an assistant principal at South Kingstown High School, and he lives in South Kingstown. His career before becoming an elementary assistant principal was as a high school math teacher. So he has two little kids, and he's probably making thousands more than he is currently making. So this really was, I mean, he actually, I don't even know if I'm supposed to say this, but Jonathan, I'm going to say it anyway, but Jonathan was actually offered a job in another district, and he decided to stay because he enjoyed his experience here. He and I had a nice conversation. I understand completely why it really is, to be honest, a no-brainer for him to make this move, given his personal situation. So that's why he's leaving.
I guess I would just suggest that when we are hiring, that we've lost a lot of really, good principals, assistant principals, because, Bristol, Cranston, we've lost because of moving closer to their hometowns. So maybe we want to look in Northern Rhode Island for our next assistant principal.
We can look, but I think that'll be tough.
I'm just saying, this
Right.
is not the first time it's happened.
Right, no, we've had very good principals leave, and, because they've taken jobs closer to home. It's just the
We've
nature
also
of-
had, for the record, administrators who've left and
Come
who
back.
wanted to come back, but there's no place for them. So, we can talk privately about, what the thinking of some people are, but we have a strong administrative team right now, and we're doing well. So we just got to make sure that we treat them fairly.
I'm sure that the administrative team will always comply with the law when it comes to hiring practices.
Right.
Agreed, Mr. Adams.
All right, next on the, he's sweating bullets. Next on the agenda is school committee comments, school liaison reports. Go ahead, Mr. Fiorello.
Speaking of Mr. Rappaport, who I actually spoke with him today, he is, it's bittersweet for him because he does like the district. He enjoys what he does here. He enjoys the people he's working with. This is strictly more of a personal decision to be closer to home. And I can only speak really for his time at BF, but he has managed to become a part of that family at BF, so he will be sorely missed. Also, Jillian Smith, who is an award-winning guidance counselor, who has been there, I think, as long as my kids have been in that school, and Mrs. Bernardo's also. She's a phenomenal guidance counselor. She will be sorely missed. I also want to point out that I know there was some chit-chat on Facebook about some new ranking of schools with the best teachers in the state, and we had the majority of our schools make it. The one school that was left off was BF Norton, and I think they kind of are not too happy with that because they have worked extremely hard the last several years to move that school forward and to increase achievement at a level that I would challenge any other elementary school in this state to be able to lay claim to. So they do an outstanding job, and for my money, they stand shoulder to shoulder with any of the best teachers in the state.
Yeah, well, I guess to add on to that, and I just want, again, to congratulate the administration and the teachers and everyone on the RICAS results. And I did also eagerly pick up my Valley Breeze today, expecting to see it on the front page, and had to go in several pages in to read about it. And that's quite a missed opportunity, quite a shame. But to talk about BF Norton, in terms of growth, BF Norton has, overall Cumberland increased 5 percentage points, but BF Norton increased, in ELA almost 15 percentage points, and on math almost 14 percentage points. So BF Norton is actually showing the most significant growth across the district. Ashton had 16 percentage points for ELA growth, and NCMS is, over 10% growth in ELA and in math. So there's some significant growth across the district. And looking at, BF Norton just in particular, that is amazing work that is happening. And this gets to, again, the data-driven planning and strategy and decision-making that Mr. Damana and his team and the whole administration and the teacher support. It's really spectacular when you look at these results. I mean, we thought last time it was pretty amazingly awesome, and now it's even better. So we look forward to when we get the full, we just kind of have some preliminary stuff here, but we look forward to the deep dive on this and the story that really needs to be told around the success that Cumberland is having. So kudos and congratulations again. And, this is my front page, RICAS, Cumberland, go, I'd make my own front page for that. And then I also want to add on to something Mr. Costa said in terms of the Spirit Week and the tremendous school spirit that there was. So my daughter's in student government for the first time, and she told me, like on the last day of ticket sales for the homecoming dance, she goes, "Mom, we sold a ticket today. It was like number 740. And we all had this discussion around, are there really 740 kids that are going in the homecoming dance? And there is. So, and she also speaks very highly of Mr. Curran and the work that he's doing as the new student government advisor and the things that he's doing to, just get the kids excited and promoting things on social media or carrying a clock around or a pineapple or something else to, and I can speak for my daughter that she loves it, and she loves the energy that he brings and the new ideas that he brings. So I think that is having a big impact, and I know that Timmery also, I think, spoke to that too. So, kudos to all of that, and it's great to see the school spirit, and I am just thankful that the seniors won, because I have a senior, and I know it was close, and there was the night that they lost Powder Puff, and I can't, it's a hard night at home when the seniors don't win. But I'm glad in the end they pulled it all off. So thank you for enabling all of that. The kids are exhausted. It is an exhausting week. One thing I would consider, though, is looking at whether we should be giving any summative assessments or progress assessments or homework during Spirit Week, because it's too much. The kids are busy all day, they're busy all night, and they can't do it all. So we could talk about this maybe for next year, but my advice is we gotta We got to decide how we want to handle that, because the kids they can't do it all. But anyways, kudos to CHS.
Mr. Costa, did we rent the sumo wrestling this year? Okay.
Right now, Clipper Carnival hasn't run for a couple of years. They're looking to bring that back, but not running every year. But one class, we want each class to see it every 4 years, so sumo wrestling. I think we had sumo wrestling at the senior picnic too, but we haven't had Clipper Carnival in a couple of years now.
Okay, thank you.
Do you remember the day that,
The Phil, yeah, and the Phil Thornton picture, yes, so I was looking forward to that again. I would just like to say, I do hope the Valley Breeze, which is our newspaper of record, comes to an achievement meeting where we really break down these scores from the testing and does a proper story. I'm in the newspaper business, and you can't write a story like this without doing well. I mean, it should be on the front page. I know up in Norwood, Mass, where I have a newspaper up there, one of our schools was a blue ribbon school. I'm losing my voice here, but, you know, and I made it sure that our principals knew. I even let Mr. DeMana know who got it in Rhode Island, and, you know, it's a big deal, and, you know, we're second to third, or however you want to look at it. And years ago, I can remember people saying people aren't going to come to Cumberland High School or anything unless the schools are great. And we're doing a heck of a job with the schools right now. And, you know, we've stepped up. We've given the Essentials program at the high school more time, more money. We give Mr. DeMana what he hopefully needs for the schools. I remember I said 6 years ago when Lisa Bolio amended the budget on the floor against Mr. Pignano's, you know, caution, and Dr. Thornton, and we started the interventionist program where we hired people. And we've continued off that every year. Are we going to be Barrington like Mr. Adams over here? You know, maybe. The way we're going, sure. You know, you got to look. As I said in an email to the Valley Breeze, we were only as good as last year's numbers, and we got to do better every year. And I think we are certainly on our way to do that. And kudos to the Province Journal to note that Cumberland, you know, made good gains again, even though their story wasn't too long either, but at least someone's acknowledging us on the state level. So with that said, is there any other comments?
I have one
Go
comment.
ahead, Mrs. Waters.
So I've been getting a flood of texts since my last comment, so I'll just want to state for the record, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not in HR. And we have a very capable, excellent HR department that follows all the labor laws.
Okay. Thank you. So I need a vote to, Mr. Superintendent, do we have executive session?
No, we do not, Mr.
We do not, so I need a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn by Mr. Salvatore. Second by Mr. Collins, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you very much.